the Stanleys have been arrested for white slavery. Go away.
Morning, Mr. Whiteside. I'm Jefferson of the Visalia Journal.
Oh, really? Get rid of him.
I'm sorry, Mr. Whiteside is seeing no one.
Really?
So, will you please excuse us? Good day.
Mr. Whiteside seems to be sitting up and taking notice.
I'm afraid he isn't taking notice of the Visalia Journal. Do you mind?
You know, if I'm going to be insulted, I'd like it to be by Mr. Whiteside himself. I never did like carbon copies.
Ooh, touché, if I ever heard one. And in Visalia, too, Maggie dear.
Will you please leave?
How about an interview, Mr. Whiteside?
I never give them. Go away.
Now, Mr. Whiteside, if I don't get this interview, I lose my job.
That would be quite all right with me.
Now, you don't mean that, Mr. Whiteside. You used to be a newspaper man yourself. You know what editors are like. Well, mine's the toughest one that ever lived.
You won't get around me that way. If you don't like them, get off the paper.
Yes, but I happen to think it's a good paper. William Allen White could have got out of Emporia, but he didn't.
You have the effrontery in my presence to compare yourself with William Allen White.
Only in the sense that William Allen White stayed in Emporia, and I want to stay here and say what I want to say.
Such as what?
Oh, I couldn't put it into words, Mr. Whiteside. It'd sound like an awful lot of hooey. But the Journal was my father's paper. It's kind of a sentimental point with me, the paper. I'd like to carry on where he left off.
Just a minute. Then this terrifying editor, this dread journalistic apocalypse is you?
Yes, in a word.
In future, Sherry, I wish you'd let me know when you don't want to talk to people. I'll usher them right in.
You may approach. I suppose you've written that great American novel.
No, I've written that great American play.
Well, I don't want to read it, but you can send me your paper. I'll take a year's subscription. Do you write the editorials, too?
Every one of them.
And I know just what they're like. Me, I'm afraid you're that noble young newspaper man. Crusading, idealistic, dull. Very good casting, too.
You're not bad casting yourself, Mr. Whiteside.
We won't discuss it. Do these tired old eyes spy a box of goodies over there? Hand them to me on your way out.
The trouble is, Mr. Whiteside, that your being in this town comes under the heading of news. Practically the biggest news since the Depression.
Pecan butternut fudge. Yum.
Oh, my, you mustn't eat candy, Mr. Whiteside. It's very bad for you.
My great-aunt Jennifer ate a whole box of candy every day of her life. She lived to be 102. And when she had been dead 3 days, she looked better than you do now. What were you saying, old fellow?
I can at least report to my readers that chivalry is not yet dead.
We won't discuss it. Well, now that you've won me with your pretty ways, what do you want?
How about a brief talk on famous murders? You're an authority on murder as a fine art.
My dear boy, when I talk about murder, I get paid for it, so don't expect to get it for nothing.
Well, then what do you think of Visalia? How long are you going to be here? Where are you going? Things like that.
Oh, very well. A, Visalia is a town of irresistible charm. B, I cannot wait to get out of it. And C, I am going from here to Crockfield for my semi-annual visit to the Crockfield home for paroled convicts, for which I have raised over $500,000 in the last 5 years. From there, I go to New York. Have you ever been to Crockfield, Jefferson?
No, I haven't.
As a newspaper man, you ought to go instead of wasting your time with me. It's only about 75 miles from here. Did you ever hear how Crockfield started?
No, I didn't.
Sit down, Jefferson. It is one of the most endearing and touching stories of our generation. One misty St. Valentine's Eve, the year was 1901, a little old lady who had given her name to an era, Victoria, lay dying in Windsor Castle. Maude Adams had not yet caused every young heart to swell as she tripped across the stage as Peter Pan. Irving Berlin had not yet written the first notes of a ragtime rigadoon that was to set the nation's feet a-tapping. And Elias P. Crockfield was just emerging from the state penitentiary. Destitute, embittered, cruel of heart, he wandered on this St. Valentine's Eve into a little church. But there was no godliness in his heart that night, no prayer upon his lips. In the faltering twilight, Elias P. Crockfield made his way toward the poor box. With callous fingers, he ripped open this poignant testimony of a simple people's faith. Greedily, he clutched at the few pitiful coins within. And then, a child's wavering treble broke the twilight stillness. "Please, Mr. Man," said a little girl's voice, "won't you be my Valentine?" Elias P. Crockfield turned. There stood before him a bewitching little creature of 5, her yellow curls cascading over her shoulders like a golden Niagara in her tiny outstretched hand. a humble Valentine. In that one crystal moment, a sealed door opened in the heart of Elias P. Crockfield, and in his mind was born an idea. 25 years later, 3,000 ruddy-cheeked convicts were frolicking on the broad lawns of Crockfield home and in the cool depths of its swimming pool, broadcasting with their own symphony orchestra from their own radio station. Elias P. Crockfield has long since gone to his maker, but the little girl of the golden curls, now grown to lovely womanhood, is known as the Angel of Crockfield, for she is the wife of the warden. And in the main hall of Crockfield, between a Rembrandt and an El Greco, there hangs in a simple little frame that humble Valentine.
And in the men's washroom every Christmas Eve, the ghost of Elias P. Crockfield appears in one of the stalls. Will you sign this, please?
This aging debutante, Mr. Jefferson, I retain in my employ only because she is the sole support of her two-headed brother.
I understand. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Whiteside. You've been very kind. By the way, I'm a cribbage player if you need one while you're here.
Fine. How much can you afford to lose?
I usually win.
We won't discuss that. Come back at 8:30. We'll play three-handed with Shirley Temple.